One, two, three in the place to be. It's your player partners from the bottom of the map.
From the bottom of the map.
It's your dog is real.
Ike Hayes.
And once again, make sure that you like, subscribe, share, and if you got 2 cents to put in, go ahead and jump in them comments. We know y'all gonna be talking shit just as well as us, but that's what we love. Appreciate y'all rocking with us as we continue to grow this channel and keep giving you this real spill. Now, let's jump into the business of the day. That school in Tallahassee been whining because they got left out of the college football playoffs. They say they've been snubbed. They about to leave the ACC. They finna sue. They finna do all of this. Ain't nobody feeling sorry for them. But I'm gonna get off my soapbox and we're gonna start hitting you with facts and plenty of information. So go ahead because they doing too much crying right now. We not finna have it. We not finna have it.
And I think this is the only time that we really going to address this. After the bowl game, we got on this channel and predicted that they was going to get left out because it was just common sense. You know what I'm saying? And at the same time, I'm not mad at any school for getting pissed off. You feel me? Like if fans didn't get in something, we'll get pissed off, but nobody's going to cry for us because we're hated. And you got to know that. But let's really get into the curious case of Florida State. And I've heard a lot of opinions on it. Like they could, like you said, they could boycott the bowl game. They could do these things. They're crying. They're getting everybody else to a degree. They've even made a rap song. Rap song kind of hot too, by the way. It's hot. It's hot. That being stated, though, I don't think anybody has really analyzed this, though, from a basic philosophical standpoint of, is it merit or are we talking about money? And so, you know what? Before we get into their undefeated record and how they got snubbed, let's start at the beginning of the season, right? ACC conference comes out, they're introducing everything for the season. What dominates the news? Florida State. Florida State made a big deal about not getting enough money and threatening to leave. It was big news. They did everything. They were talking about how can they get out the grants of rights. They were putting pressures on the other school. So much so where we already watched the demise of the Pac-12. Well, Florida State was trying to contact the SEC, contacting the Big Ten, which really in turn made Clemson, North Carolina, and even Miami and Pittsburgh have to follow suit. Now, we don't think these other schools really wanted to do it, but Florida State has leverage in the conference, though they're not a founding member, right? The original members of the Atlantic Coast Conference are Clemson, I believe, who is it? North Carolina, and Duke, and maybe one or two more schools were leaving out. Florida State, came from another conference, much like Miami, As a matter of fact,
Florida State joined ACC in 1991. Miami joined the ACC in 2004.
Okay. And so at the end of the day, and these are back in the day where they had the Big East and several other conferences. But anyway, Florida State, we're talking about going ham. So much so, you do know that they started talking to private equity firms because the contract was ironclad, which, and you can go look it up. It states that the exit fee is $120 million. So you ain't got to cry about it. You really want to get out, go ahead and pay the money. It's very obvious as an institution and as a fan base, they could not come up with the money. Or maybe they didn't want to come up with the money. But we're going to go ahead and say that between the fan base, they didn't want to raise the money. Now, we do realize that money could be raised, right? SMU is coming to the ACC, and they're not getting any revenue. In 7 days, they raised $100 million. That right there is 85% of the exit fee that Florida State would have to pay. So it's very obvious that Florida State and their fan base cannot come up with $120 million. Okay, it is what it is. The grants right runs through 2035, 2036. So, they're clamoring. Now, a lot of us were like, okay, you want to leave, but you can't leave. The SEC does not want you. They have come out and said that. Why? Because they have Florida. They already have presence in this region. They don't need it. The Big Ten really doesn't want it, but they already are looking at the SEC like, okay, if they expand, we have to expand. A lot of this is dominoes. So Florida State's going on and on. And, I'm thinking to myself, well, they went 10-3 last year, but besides that, they haven't been good. Why do they want to leave? Where is the merit in you leaving? Now, Clemson, clearly the dominant team in our conference for the last, I would say, 10 years, 8 or 10, given how you want to dice it up. They've been to the college football. They've won 2 championships. Why are they not making this same argument, right? And I'm looking and I'm like, well, is this about merit? Florida State pretty much came out and said it's not about merit. It is about money. And so they're like, they don't like the deal. They don't like the deal. So I was thinking to myself, well, did somebody hold a gun to their head and make them sign the deal? Because if they signed it under duress, you know what I'm saying? Anybody who's, who knows anything about legalities here, if you sign a contract during duress, well, that's not a legal contract in any arena. But we know that that didn't happen. I did the Googling in 2019. The ACC partnered with ESPN to launch the ACC network. You know what I'm saying? And it was a great partnership, so much so that the Clemson president came out and said that we think it's a great deal and should help stabilize the conference, because that's what it was all about. Now, because of that, their original deal that they signed for the conference rights was extended by 9 years, probably to coincide with that contract. I look back at the articles, no rumblings, everybody is happy about it. So then I'm confused and I'm like, well, why don't you like the deal? Oh, because the SEC and the Big Ten are able to make almost double that. But at that time, that wasn't the case. They signed new deals later. So it wasn't a bad deal at the time, but it's a bad deal later on because they're getting more money. So that also points to where, okay, so this is a conversation about money. But I'm still looking at it like, well, where is the merit? When Jimbo left, y'all have not been good. You've actually been horrendous. Miami, up and down, kind of the same thing, somewhat horrendous, but you don't hear Miami grumbling. So then I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So, as the media days get closer, Florida State is dominating the news in the conference. And it's to the point where they're whining. The whole conference is looking like, okay, what should we do? And secretly, I think that the other presidents and athletic directors are looking at them like spoiled children. But the ACC realizing how important that Florida State is. And Florida State's argument is that they're bringing in more revenue. But we're still confused because you haven't been winning games and your fan base is still not traveling to a lot of your away games. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not record-breaking. There's no leverage in renegotiating with ESPN. So ESPN said they weren't going to renegotiate because they didn't have to. So Florida State still, going, like I said, to different hedge funds. They can't find any financial institution that is willing to lend them the money to make it make sense. Because basically it's $120 million. So they would have to hold $120 million. Then they would forfeit. They would actually forfeit the rest of their rights for the rest of the deal. So they would be missing out on the 40 to 60 million, whatever it is that they're getting. And I know as an institution, they couldn't afford that. Either way, though, they get the conference to go toward a performance-based incentive to where the teams that do better in football get more money. And so the whole time, though, I'm still looking at this like, well, where is the merit in this, right? And I thought about this as as I go back to now, there's a conversation because they're snubbed from the playoff. And their biggest thing is we earned it. It's merit. But I think to myself, well, where was that argument when you wanted to leave? Where was this argument when it was the performance-based? There wasn't. So I see that when it serves them correctly, it's like, you know what? It's about money. It's about money. But when they were snubbed, it's not about money. It's about merit. And they're trying to, and I'm like, you can't have it two ways. Florida State has to know that this is karma. This is karma because you can't have two philosophies that are polar opposites. Yes, it's about money, but is it only about money? It has to be about merit too. But when that conversation was inconvenient for you, there was not, in all the articles I looked at, they couldn't even point to merit. Clemson, like I said, could point to all of that merit, and they did not at all. But they're forced to kind of go along with Florida State because we don't want, the whole thing about our conference is everyone needs to stick together because as we can clearly see, the Pac-12 is dead. That being stated, as I watch Florida State cry over and over again, I'm thinking to myself, well, damn, okay, earlier this year, it had nothing to do with merit. You know what I'm saying? It was all about money. But now it shouldn't be about money and it should be about merit. Not only is that a contradiction, it don't make no damn sense. We are in college football. Everything has something to do with money, but money isn't the only factor. It has to do with more than one thing. So it can't just be about merit. Truth be told, they're acting like they're the only team that's snubbed. So we all know that if anybody, not the casual fans, but people who have been watching the BCS era know that teams were snubbed left and right. But we don't even remember them, right? Because it happened, we moved on with it, and we're not crying about it anymore. Y'all do know that besides Florida State fans, in a couple of years, no one's going to even really sit down and even care about it anymore. But I thought about it, and as a Miami fan, we all know the infamous 2000 where we beat Florida State. We had one loss, they had one loss, but somehow they played for the national championship. Miami, we weren't happy about it, but Miami was a very hated program, and it still is a hated program. So instead of us crying about it, what did we do? We ended up beating the shit out of Florida, and we took out our frustrations on them. And no one talked about it. The very next year, we won the title. But what most people don't remember is no one remembers the Washington Huskies, right? The Huskies. We actually lost to the Washington Huskies that year, and they were another one-loss team. And they had a legitimate chance to go to that championship. But nobody remembers it, right? You don't even hear Washington even crying about it anymore because it doesn't fucking matter. At the end of the day, life goes on. You take it out. You play your bowl game. You do know that Florida State went on in that year to not only lose, but they lost like 14-2. So that means to tell me that you didn't even score an offensive touchdown. You got a goddamn safety. And so it brings me to this year. As this issue gets more politicized, which they got DeSantis, threatening to throw money. And I'm like, I don't know about Floridians, but most people in Florida know DeSantis is hated. He keeps saying that he's popular. He's not. He almost lost his first election. The only reason he won it is because his daddy Trump came through and he won it by 300 votes. So having a very unpopular governor on your side kind of even makes the whining, even worse, because I'm like, well, this person doesn't have any credibility. That being stated, the other argument is they lost their quarterback. It's not my fault. Now, as an individual in business, and most people are grown, imagine looking at certain things happening and saying it's not my fault. Once you get to a certain level in your life, it's not a lot of things are not going to be your fault, but are they going to be your responsibility? As running an institution that pays a coach north of $6 million, I know Florida State, even as a school, has an endowment of goal of $1 billion. Can you really say it's not my fault? Yes, it's not your fault. Your quarterback went down, but it is your fault to develop talent. Mm-hmm. One of those quarterbacks has been on the roster for more than 2 or 3 years. Even when we compare Ohio State, they had the year where their quarterback went down. Obviously, they showed up in the next game, beat Wisconsin by 50 damn points. Therefore, the playoff committee couldn't say anything, and they were able to get in there. Everybody knows that you don't have an offense. Okay, cool. We understand players go down. We benched our starter and we played Florida State with Emory Williams, and he looked good. Because at the end of the day, whether you're developing talent or you're going to the portal or you're just signing a heralded quarterback, it is a gamble. But for your other two quarterbacks to not look good, that's on the coaching staff, that's on the school, that's on the recruitment. That is your fault. It is your fault because football is the modern, gladiator sport. Players are going to go down. Most great programs, what is the sentiment? Next man goddamn up. You cannot cry about this shit. You have to buck up. Why? Because it's about the money, money, money. If money and incentive and merit based, and if you are that gung-ho about leaving the ACC, there is no way that you should ever be crying about anything. You should have the wherewithal and you should have the coaching staff to develop the quarterbacks. But at the end of the day, the quarterbacks look decent at best, and then the second quarterback went down. Those things are your fault. Those things are under your control. Now, if everybody gets hurt, we still would understand, but this is football. Much like baseball, it ain't no crying. You've got to do what you got to do. And I just think at this point, it's like to even think about, boycotting the bowl. Here's the real thing that they're scared of. And if they're not scared, then prove it to us. You go in there and you play Georgia and you get drugged, then everybody else was right. And as much as people wanted to cry for you, we would have been highly disappointed to watch you get beat down by Michigan. Michigan was sad because they didn't want to play Alabama. And they won't tell you that they wanted to play you because everyone knows that it's not even a dirty secret at this point. You don't have any offense. All of your quarterbacks outside your transfer portal quarterback sucks. And that just happens. I give y'all props. You definitely went undefeated, and there's no way about that. But merit don't always equal results. And you know that because you made arguments at the beginning of the year all about money. There was no merit involved. You can't have it both goddamn ways. You didn't want to answer any questions about leaving the ACC because the track record is not there. You just know that you have leverage because the Big Ten wants to fend off the SEC, but the SEC does not want you. And you know, at the end of the day, the SEC has different competition for a lot of schools. So there's no telling. The Big Ten, yes, you could probably thrive there. But regardless, if you have a point to prove, do like other teams in the past that were snubbed. Go to your bowl game, beat the shit out of Georgia. That is your only way to stick it. If y'all even talk about boycotting the bowl, then you a bitch. There's no way around it. This is football. We don't run from no competition. And Kirby's not going to say anything. Kirby feels some type of way. Yes, Kirby has one loss, but Kirby is undefeated for 2 years. So there's a lot of merit and there's a lot of money there. And I feel like at the end of the day, what he's going to do is his team, they're going to get up to play you. See, you don't know if your players are going to sit out or not, but that also says something to your team if they don't get up and play. There are going to be no excuses when you get on that field, right? As you said, you won all your games. Okay, well, at the end of the day, the committee chose to make a financial argument based on your lackluster offense. It not only is within their rights to do that, it's not the first time, it won't be the last. I pretty much went back through the BC era, and we're looking at the playoff committee, and there's always going to be controversy. You don't think in the next 3 to 4 years there's going to be some deserving team? Now, maybe there's not going to be an undefeated Power 5, but you can yell it to the mountaintops. If an undefeated Power 5 quarterback goes down and they look bad, then they're not going to get the seeding that they want. And if we stayed at 4 teams, somebody else would get left out. Because truth be told, even if there were 5 undefeated, conference teams, somebody was going to get left out. And honestly, the way that y'all offense plays them 2 games, it was going to be you again. Now, I'm the first to say, if Jordan Travis is healthy and y'all went out with that, you're in there. But even then, you can't, when it doesn't go your way, you can't cry about it. You want to leave, regardless, you want to lead the ACC. Well, guess what? Either pay the $120 million or shut the fuck up and win the games. Win the games and be the power. Because at the end of the day, no one likes anybody who only has, once again now, you haven't been dominant the last 10 years. You had a good record last year. You had an elite record this year. Nobody can take that from you. But I feel like you tarnish your legacy if you can't go in there and play Georgia. And at this point, you talk so much, you got to fucking win. You at least got to look competitive. If y'all don't look competitive and you get your ass thumped by 40, not only was everybody right, but now you look like you've been crying the whole time. And honestly, that really makes the rest of your arguments, leaving the ACC, performance-based. You've got to be able to earn your right to talk shit. One thing about Miami, we definitely did not have our best year. We don't even, we're impartial on this channel, so we don't really always say great things about Cristobal. We just tell it how it is. But one thing I can say about Miami fans is we know you don't like us. We know they hate us. So in y'all position, we got to beat everybody. Our quarterback go down and we look bad, we already know we're going to get snubbed. But guess what? Besides maybe a couple of, TV pundits, nobody's crying for us and we're getting fucked. That's okay. You got to love Michigan this year. All that hate on them, it doesn't matter. Continue to win your games and play your style. But I'm sorry, if y'all don't do that, I don't give a fuck if you get goddamn Peyton Manning and the whole NFL. Yo, play Georgia and win. If you don't win, then you look like some bitches. And not just that, at the end of the day, it was based on finances and merit. So yes, your quarterback went down, but you have a responsibility to get the rest of that roster together. And you know that, and we know that, and that's the dirty little secret. I think a lot of people feel like you deserve to be in there. I do, but I do not want to see you play because it's not going to be entertaining. And once again, prove us wrong. But to opt out of the bowl and go get Florida politicians to have your back, man, especially Ron, sound like some sucker shit, man. I really don't know what to say about it because I'm like, at this point, I never thought I would hear this much crying. I look back and I look at all those other schools. Listen, Nebraska was favored during the BC era. It was a whole bunch of times they were in there. At the end of the day, during that year, every school has something to say. Okay, cool. They play their bowl game, and it is what it is. Y'all are talking about doing some unprecedented off of one great year. Nah, I'm sorry. And then to continue to cry about it, like, look, bro, it's over. But you know what I think deep down? Y'all know y'all don't got no offense, and you know you're going to get dumped by Georgia. So you want to make sure you drain all of this hype. You want to drain everything about it. You can raise all the money that you want to, but at the end of the day, do realize that Jordan Travis Yes, he was the transfer quarterback, and your other quarterbacks that you have in your system are not getting it done. So guess what? You're going back to the transfer portal. And I think that's a bigger question than anything else. Develop the talent you had. And I understand Miami, listen, we didn't develop the best talent, but Emory Williams came in and he played his heart out. And, he broke his arm, you know what I'm saying, on that play against Florida State. But there wasn't no crying. There wasn't no crying. And we're playing a whole nother quarterback in a bowl game who's untested. It is what it is. That is the life in this day and age. The fact that we have a transfer portal, think about it. If we didn't have the transfer portal, you have to, whoever you're bringing in this year plus what you got over there. Because anybody else they'd have to sit out a year. You don't even have that. I just feel like y'all don't have a leg to stand on. At the end of the day, play the game out, pay the money to get out the SEC, or shut the fuck up. Please, please. We just want to watch football and we just want to watch competition. And honestly, that's the dirty secret that everybody really knows. We just want to watch good football. You don't have an offense. But I could be wrong. This channel could be wrong. A lot of people could be wrong. Prove it. Either pop, in the words of Jadakiss, either pop shit or apologize. That's it. All I got to say on that, man. That's all I got to say on that.
Listen, I don't got nothing else to add. You said all that needed to be said. We ain't got no love for them up there anyway. So
merit or greed. It seems like when you want an argument about money, it doesn't have anything to do with merit. It's all money. But then when it's on playing, it's not our fault. It's all merit. And I'm like, nah, it's got to be both. It's always about merit and money. So yeah, that's what we're gonna title this video. Is it merit or money, baby?
Yeah, and if you feel away, if you're a Florida State fan, or you just have whatever your thoughts are, you think Florida State should be in, should they leave the ACC? Should other conferences look at allowing FSU to join their conference? Let us know what you feel. It's a lot of
leave. They can't pay the money. You can't pay the money when you got greed. You can't. You don't have any other quarterbacks. You can't do this. So it's just I just feel like it's a whole bunch of things that you can't do and you can't control, instead of worrying about what you can control and doing the best that you can.
Well, we're gonna see how this plays out in the next few weeks. We got a couple of weeks before the bowl games, and we're gonna see if they're gonna continue to cry and if they actually try to take this to court. We're gonna see how this plays out. We hadn't seen this is this will be precedent. We haven't seen a team go this far at this extent. They've asked for an emergency 18th playoff, boycotting the bowl, all types of shit, all types of
If you're
sucky
scared,
shit.
then let's just get on with it. I'd rather for them. I would have more respect if they just said we don't want to play Georgia, but all this we deserve off of one season. Nah.
But till next time, this should play a partners from the bottom of the map.
From the bottom of the map.
We gone.
Gone.